If you clicked on this video, chances are you're very interested in speedrunning, especially when it comes to the top level of speedrunning when achieving world records. Well, in today's video, we're having a very deep discussion on what I feel is the biggest factor separating becoming great versus the best in the world at a speedrun for world records in video gaming. So in case you're new to my channel, my name is NMeade and I'm the former #1 overall time trial champion for Mario Kart Wii. And during my time, apart from being the best time trialer in the game, I did set a lot of world records during my prime back in the day, so I know a thing or two. And so in the background here is going to be some of my world record history playing as we kind of discuss different things about mentality and how that's going to help you with breaking world records and speedrunning. I have a couple of notes on the side just to keep ourselves on track here, but still it's not really a scripted video. I think it'll be the most authentic take that I have on the topic here. So first off, you have to know your why with this. What is going to make it, to invest all this time beyond just surface level entry into speedrunning. You have to have it worthwhile to sacrifice so much time to get to the top level for performing world record runs in speedrunning. A little bit of a background for me for my why. So I started, speedrunning endeavors for Mario Kart Wii in 2008. Before that point, I was competing in Guitar Hero of all games for top scores for overall ranks in that game. And my why was, even when I was young, I wanted to become the best at a video game in general. And so at the time, I thought I could excel to the highest level at Guitar Hero when I was 12 to 14 years old. That didn't pan out. I got pretty good, but it was pretty clear that wasn't for me. And so I accidentally stumbled upon what will be for Mario Kart Wii. So August 14th, 2008, the fateful day, I join a worldwide and I see there's clan tags, there's clans for Mario Kart Wii of all things. And eventually, to get good at the game, you must time trial, practice your lines, different techniques, and so on. And so I got caught with the bug there. I quickly joined the players page, saw all the ranks, and eventually, I thought I could become the best to get world records, let alone eventually become the overall champion. And so my why was so deeply rooted in just wanting to be the best in the world at something in gaming. And so that allowed me to stick out long periods of grinds and frustrations and wanting to quit the game altogether multiple times. Even just kind of jumping around a little bit, there was a time where I was probably maybe top 50 in the game for Mario Kart Wii, or top 40 around there. And I just one night, I totally freaked out. I had this big fail on Muma Meadows of all tracks, and I wanted to delete my entire timesheet and just be done with the game and walk away and just be done with it all, But I chose not to, and it's just funny how the story goes that I achieved as much as I did after that point. But again, I even wrote down here too, if the endeavor doesn't mean enough to you, you're not going to stick with it for the long term. So, the idea of excelling at the top level may be appealing to you, but maybe the game you're trying to run, whether it's time trials or Mario Kart games, or longer form speedruns for other games, maybe it's just not the game for you to pursue. Maybe you can excel at something different in the gaming sphere. But even still, it has to be worthwhile and meaningful to you, because as you're going to see, this takes a disgusting amount of time, effort to get to this point. For me, I micromanaged my day when I was younger to try to maximize the amount of free time that I had to physically play in game to get to my goals. No balance at all. But again, to become great and the best at something, balance really is thrown out the window for most people. I'm actually interested to see if anyone that's watching this has performed at the highest level in any type of speed run. Do you relate with this? Do you find that you've had to sacrifice balance to get after the biggest goal that you've had? Because for me, I had to. It was very clear because I put in so much more time than a lot of the player base at the very beginning, and I feel like I have, at least to some degree, a natural talent for the game. But really what drove me a lot in the very beginning was the amount of time investment I was willing to do. Obviously, I was in high school, had no job, no real life commitments. It was just school, exams, papers, and Mario Kart. So I would finish everything and studying at school. I would come home, get a snack, and time travel and play until I go to bed. That's just the honest truth of it all. And that's how I excelled really quickly, honestly. It was just a pure time investment. Clearly, there are people that can be more naturally gifted and talented, and when they also apply the time, they exponentially reach and surpass other people in the player base. So kind of moving on to different traits that will help you excel at the highest level. I have a couple of them listed down here. So the first one is going to be patience. So especially with speedrunning, I'm sure if you guys have done time trials or any other type of speedrunning in the past, you understand this is a very patient game you must play to be able to get after new personal bests and excelling at a very high level. If you don't have patience, especially for something like this, where this is individual courses, mostly 2 minutes or less on average, very brutal, very, very brutal form of speedrunning. Very reset heavy. You could go 5+ hours of a session, not get to lap 3 sometimes. No new personal best splits, no new PBs at all. That is discouraging. It feels like it's a waste of your time, but it's all about how you're thinking about how you're utilizing your time and how it's helping you for the future. Because at least in my opinion, a part of the mentality is you have to get through the bad sessions that you have to get to the better sessions. And even if you're kind of spinning your wheels, no pun intended, but if you're spinning your wheels in your sessions, I still feel like it's not completely unproductive because you're still utilizing your time to be just practicing motions and techniques, because actually the next point is consistency that I wrote down. So if you play only once every 1 or 2 weeks or so, like I do now, honestly, at this point, many years later, then of course you're not going to be as consistent in the end, and your rate of improvement will not be as quickly as if you could pour several hours every single day, as an example. So my rate of improvement was exponential for quite a while back in my prime because I was playing at least 8 hours or more a day. So it makes sense. The more time you're physically practicing the act and making attempts, naturally you're probably going to be making more progress, right? But again, you need just the patience for the type of speedrun that you're doing, especially individual levels like this. Because again, it's brutal. It's just a different mindset. I've made a different contrast to longer form speedruns like Mario 64 that are over an hour long for 120 star. Final Fantasy runs are 5+ hours depending on which game and category that you're doing. So for those games, it requires a different level of patience and tolerance for speedrunning those. So you really have to find what your balance is, what fits the most for what your personality is, and what you're willing to tolerate for, you know, just going through resets and just staying in it for the long term, you know, because I'm kind of jumping some points I have a little bit later on, but truly the one that's the most mentally strong and they believe in themselves the most, they're gonna win in the end. Because if something doesn't matter if you have a fail or not, you have to reset, right? We could throw our hands up, be frustrated, be tilted, and just kind of rage quit for the day. But in the end, the task wasn't achieved, right? That's kind of the brutality is maybe you had at the very end of your run, it was in the clear, and just something happens and you fail your run. It's like, well, too bad, so sad, right? What else can you do? You can't reverse time and get the run again. You have to restart, and you just have to have that very hard mentality behind you to have this unwavering mentality to never give up until you see your goal in the end. And actually that kind of leads to the next point where I put being obsessed with your goal. So I feel like if you're kind of passive with what you're trying to do, it will delay you actually achieving the goal. If you're obsessing about it, if you're thinking about it constantly, if that's the only thing that's on your mind for gaming or speed running, and when you're not playing, you're watching streams, you're critiquing and watching other people's gameplay, you're watching your own replays back again to learn from that, right? All these things will eventually accelerate your rate of improvement and eventually exceeding to the highest level, as an example. I would say for myself, I was definitely through and through obsessed with what my goal was for quite a long time, with becoming the best overall time trialer for the game and eventually succeeding. And again, if you're more passive about things and you're not being completely focused day in and day out on what you're trying to do, maybe you'll eventually get there, but it may take you a lot longer, as an example. Next bullet point is belief in yourself. I think that is one of the absolute biggest pillars of the mentality, is the strongest belief in yourself. If you take nothing away from this conversation, let it be this: a very strong belief in yourself, especially when you can't see yourself being at the highest level yet. For me, I always believed that I could do it, but I couldn't visualize myself being at the top. Whether it was for an individual course like this for world records, or being a collective world champion at the game. It was hard for me to process and visualize something I've never achieved before. I hope I'm articulating that point the right way. I'm actually quite curious if other speedrunners have actually felt the same as me, where, especially when you're at the very beginning and you feel like you're seeing the potential that you have, but you can't exactly see it there because you never achieved that yet. Where after I set my first world records, I had the proof, the blueprint there that I can do it, right? So I can visualize that. But getting your first one, it's just something else special and fleeting behind it, right? I will get a little bit into the story of my first world record a little bit later, because that's really where I feel like the core mentality and fortitude I built that getting my first 3-lap world record specifically. Another point here is adapting to the speedrunning landscape of new strategies and gameplay. So through and through, you could, have what's it called, the sunk cost fallacy or something, where if you invest so much time in something, right, it's kind of hard to let go of that because you're losing your time investment, right? Whereas an example, especially near the very beginning of speedrunning history for a lot of games, a lot of techniques are being pioneered, new strategies are being discovered quite rapidly and more often than not. And so you can practice a strategy for, 10, 100 hours or more, and then suddenly your efforts are obsolete because something completely busted was found, as an example, and then either you lose your world record or someone else gets it before you do, right? And so you have to have the right mindset that you have to be adapting with the field and be adapting with how just the game is changing. So people that may know my history for a long time, eventually I fell victim to this, where I had a pretty stubborn mentality about a couple of strategy changes in the game that we're watching right now. Eventually I did adopt a lot of updated strategies when I came back to this game many years removed, but still I did have that time where I was attached to the time that I spent on older things and not rapidly adapting to new discoveries that were being made. And either you adapt and you excel, or you don't and you're left behind, right? So, it's kind of brutal, but if you want to be competing at the highest level, you have to adapt. And so I think that's a very important part about constructing your mentality for this overall. So also goal setting specifically, so especially getting your first world record. If you're trying to do this right now, you should listen to this. So when I was trying to get my first world record in this game, You know, my first world records, plural, were fast lap world records, still completely valid, but the weight, it felt more getting a 3-lap world record like this as an example. So my favorite track in Mario Kart Wii is Maple Tree Way. Hopefully I synced this up the right way. My playback just got completely glitched out in any event. This is how I got my first 3-lap world record in the game. If you're trying to do this right now in any type of speedrun to get your first world record, you should listen to this. So my favorite track is Maple Tree Way, as discussed. And eventually I got to pretty high ranks here. I eventually plateaued at 3rd place. I was behind French player Luna and then Xenol that we're seeing right here for quite a while. And so I reached out to clanmate and legendary Mario Kart time trialer Cole. And I asked him literally almost verbatim, how do I set a world record in the game? Because I was so frustrated because on the one hand, I knew how much potential that I had, but on the other hand, I couldn't close out the deal, right? And so he taught me essentially how the goal set in the proper way. So you want to get to the top here at the world record, the top, right? And you're here kind of going up here, right? And so eventually you become good enough, you get the splits and the paces and so on. You have to treat your fails in a certain way, okay? So if you're on world record pace lap 3 and you crash in the first turn, that's your new PB, right? Now if you're on another run, WR pace lap 3 and you crash turn 2, that's your new PB, quote unquote. Do you follow the pattern here? So it makes it where your fails aren't all for nothing. So I actually listed this bullet point a little bit later, but I guess I'll talk about it now. So another strong part of this mentality is going to be how you approach and handle failing a speed run, right? Where you may think it's so fleeting that maybe you got your new best pace overall or new best splits for any category of a speed run, right? And it's like, on the one hand, it's like, that's my new best. I can't possibly beat it. For me, almost the entire time in my history, I told myself, I did my absolute best. 1, I can do it again. And number 2, I know I can do it even better. Because here's the facts. So when you're a new player to speedrunning for any type of speed game, this or anything else, you're going to be rapidly improving your best splits or best paces overall consecutively, right? And imagine when I was back several seconds behind all these world records here, when I set my personal best splits at that time, that I can never get any better, right? If I kept that mentality, I would have stayed there forever, right? You have to just rewire your beliefs. It's self-feeding all of these different types of concepts that we're discussing. So with that in mind, if anything, I saw fails as motivating, one for how far you get before the finish line in this game or before the very end for any other form of speedrunning, right? And number 2, not for nothing, but if you're failing at the very end a lot of times for a world record, it may be frustrating, yes, but also you're showing how consistent you are, right? If you just get one random world record fail and it's never to be ever again, then that was just almost like a fluke in a way. But if you're getting fails again and again and again, you're proving yourself right. You have to really just put this belief system into yourself. Because again, I've seen just in the past, you know, players who can become quite great and they can excel at the highest level. And what eventually you become fast enough. You can do it. 100% you can. But what's going to separate there from actually doing it is having this on straight, which is what we're talking about this entire video. If you have this in a much better place, a lot stronger, and you know how to just rewire how you're approaching things, eventually your time will come and you definitely will succeed. It's funny how it has it that after I had that conversation with Cole and YouTube PMs of all things way back in the day in 2009. It was, I think, a month or less after that point, and I converted for my first 3-lap world record, and the rest is history. And so, honestly, that was in November 2009. I'm recording this right now, April 2025, right? That's over 15 plus years later. And I still hold that conversation that me and Cole had, and that mentality and that framework today. That's how crucial it was. I feel like if I never had that advice, maybe I could have eventually had some of these feats, but I feel like just having that framework, it almost had immediate results, at least for me. So again, just try to have new benchmarks for yourself, and if anything, when you're sitting down for a session, always find something positive out of the session, right? Maybe you got no new best splits, no significant paces, right? But maybe you're consistently hitting a tech that's hard, right? Or at least your rate of speed was still pretty decent, right? You have to keep that positive mindset going to filter into future attempts, because I think eventually that momentum snowballs, and then that momentum just blossoms for a very long period of time. All right. So another thing too that kind of filters into that too is just accepting critique and feedback from your fellow player base. So again, even if people may have slower times or paces than you, or people that are faster than you, I feel like for me, when I was younger, at least for a little while, honestly, I was a little too proud, right? I wanted just to, just have a chip on my shoulder and just prove everything to myself and not ask for any help or anything else like that, right? But eventually that doesn't really work out too well. It's not really sustainable, right? And so, again, I think what can foster positivity in speedrunning is just, helping one another, right? And again, I think that only elevates the entire player base, and I think it'll also help your own endeavors too, overall. So, I kind of went through some of these other points here as well, but again, critiquing your own gameplay is huge. So for me, if I had a fail at all, I would study it ad nauseum until I understood what went wrong, how to fix it, never do it again. I was hyper analytical and critical about how I was failing runs. I was quite brutal about it. If I didn't understand why a run failed, I was very, very frustrated. And I feel like just having that just different outlook, it helped me just to excel my average gameplay and to be more consistent overall. Also, just watching other players that are faster or slower than you for ways to improve. So again, as I mentioned earlier, if I'm not playing, you should be watching streams, videos, studying your own gameplay or others as well. I would actually, on the players page forums, if there's ever a new PB that people record their time trials on YouTube, I would watch them, even if they're like a second or more slower than me, because I felt like there's always a little bit of a sliver of something that I could possibly pick up on, right? Both also on that end, but if they're a second or more faster than me, I may not exactly understand how they're being that fast yet, but just visually watching and analyzing it over and over again, it will eventually help me to perform better. So I definitely think that's a very useful part of your time overall for the goals that you set. Went over that as well. Here's another thing too. So what's going to be separating, especially in the modern day, compared to my day, is using all the useful tools for efficient practice. So I'm from the era of 2008 to 2012, mid-2012, my most active time period for the game when I excelled. And at that time, Dolphin Emulator was not really popular, number one. Number two, technology was way outdated compared to now. You think running 1080p or higher clean Dolphin Emulator is like nothing to bat an eye at, but with old technology and hardware, that was like really expensive, like prohibitively expensive for younger people like myself when I was 16, 17, no job, right? And so those practice tools weren't around. You couldn't really do save states. It was just everything in the game. Now at this point, we have emulator, save states, tasks helping us with dissecting different strats, right? There's, at least for this game, there's MKWSP, an awesome distribution that also allows for in-game console save stating to practice things more efficiently. So you have to be willing to adapt with what's out there to make practice more efficient. If I had these tools at my disposal 15 years ago, that would have exponentially expedited my practice and efficiently practicing different strats and techniques. So I would say if you have the tools within your disposal and you have hardware that can run things fairly okay, then I say by all means pursue whatever is necessary to make your practice much more efficient. Went through the time management as well before. So let's kind of talk about this. So just the reason why that I think just all these aspects of your mentality, it helps you to succeed at the highest level like this, is because in the end, nothing matters until the goal is achieved, right? As we alluded to before, you could fail like this at the finish line on this track, right? That last spin drift into the finish line, my main turbo has released and had no wheelie out and crashed in the wall right in front of the finish line. I've had world record fails recorded of that multiple times in the past, mid to low 231 paces in 2011. Quite brutal. So I had that experience, right? And in the end, it didn't matter because the time wasn't achieved, right? Again, if you boil it down, it seems kind of just, I don't know if it's cliche or another word, but let's look at it literally, right? Like these world records, right? If I stopped the try before on all of these runs wouldn't have happened. Sure, maybe if I kept playing longer on separate days, maybe I would have achieved some of these accolades, but these specific runs, if I stopped that session right before, wouldn't be seeing these right now, right? And so the one who sticks at it the most, I feel like it's almost a good level of stubbornness, which I've had a lot back in the day, being so stubborn that I continue to push myself to finally get the time, no matter how long the grind happens to be, right? If it takes you months and months, who's the most mentally strong to withstand just the mental fatigue of speedrunning until getting the world record and the goal that you have, right? Because again, if you check out too soon, I'm sorry, but too bad, so sad that the task wasn't achieved, right? And so you just have to have that belief in yourself and just the willingness to continue to go until you see out your goal being achieved. Let's see. Here's a big one, okay? A big part of mentality as well is in general with speedrunning, let's say you're very close to getting world record, right? But then you have other people competing with you, right? Where they have either the same skill as you or maybe a little bit better, right? And you're thinking, this is my prime shot, my prime opportunity to get in there and get world record before it's out of reach, right? I've had at times too where I've had similar type of situations, and eventually the world record was pushed before I got a chance to get it myself. Now it's even further out of reach. How frustrating is that, right? Well, again, how bad do you want this, right? Are you gonna throw your hands up and just quit because it's too far out of reach, or are you gonna say, you know what, that's cool, but I could do even better than that, right? And I did that quite a few times. So again, you have to, how much do you want this goal? That's such an important thing to get down, honestly. And again, I feel like healthy competition is great because it pushes you as a player to get even better than what you thought you were prior to that. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, another thing too. So let's say when you're already on top, how do you continue to be motivated to improve for your own world record, right? that was one of the biggest mental blocks I had for a while. So I could get world records, but I could never improve my own world record for quite a while. And it's like when you're the best and you're at the top of the mountain, how do you possibly push yourself further? I think that's a different type of mentality too, where at that point it's two things. You're trying to push it out of range to be threatened, but also trying to utilize your full potential. I think what's more sustainable is trying to go for your full potential, where you may have world record, but what's going to be satisfying for you to watch? Because I've had times where it looks like a giant visual eyesore to me watching a mistake, right? On one of those RBC world records, I had a bad landing on lap 2, and I wanted to just delete my save and not upload the world record. I hated that. It was 231.752, that one I believe. So again, that could drive you. Do you want absolute perfection? I think that's more sustainable, just trying to push your own limit independent of the entire competition behind you. Kind of wrapping things for just, we kind of constructed what I think goes into a strong mentality for speedrunning and how to break world records in speedrunning. I think something valid that's a part of the mentality still in your mindset is drawing healthy inspiration from others that have come before you. So for me, when I joined the players page in 2008, Alvin Van Assel was #1 overall world champion for America Wii, and I thought that's so cool, but I can never beat him. And so it's funny how it goes in the end. But I drew a lot of inspiration from him with how dedicated he was to his craft. Also with Bubbles as well, shout out Steve as well, man. I competed with him and I beat him for #1, and we battled for a little bit there, and that was such a fun world record battle too. Also shout out to Jorge as well. That's kind of more of a longer history with that, but still Jorge pushed me more than beyond my limits that I thought possible at the time as well. And I drew a lot of inspiration from world champions and world record holders from older Mario Kart games for me specifically. So I wrote a lot of names down that I looked to in the past. So KVD, Sammy Seaton, Gulame Leviach, MJ, Matias, MK Dasher, TB1, Abel, Andy Lundin, Sebastian Stelmacher, Richard Carlson, Quader Benarioa, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right, sorry about that, Andreas Rudmarker, Aaron Langerak, Michael Fried, Tim Shelbourne, and Louis Benny as well, all the legends here from Mario Kart Wii and older Mario Karts as well. I was a fiend for forum posts and threads and seeing what people were doing and getting after their times overall for speedrunning. And when I had just lulls in my motivation and my drive, I would get a lot of inspiration from seeing other players perform at the highest level. And again, before I got to the top, I saw who came before me and what I can learn from them. So again, I would just see them posting PB after PB, maybe some fails that they had or new best splits, and it was just cool. It felt really connected, especially because you're seeing other parts of Mario Kart speedrunning for me. Maybe for other speed games out there, there's like different types of Mario games or Zelda games where maybe you can watch someone's streams or maybe hear them talk for a longer period of time, just unscripted, not a forum post or a Discord message or something like that. And you can really hear what's going through their mind, right? Because I think when constructing your own strong mentality for speedrunning, it's kind of you're picking and grabbing, so to say, from different people, and you're kind of putting it to your own pot, and you're seeing how you can just construct your motivation and your mentality to never quit until you get to your goal overall. But yeah, I mean, we went through a lot here today. Again, this wasn't scripted at all, just the bullet points that I had here. I felt like just something unscripted like this would be the most genuine take. Of course, there's a giant alarm outside. Sorry about that. The loud fire trucks outside were so distracting. So in any event, I've wanted to make this mentality video for years now. I talked about it on streams and other YouTube videos in the past, and I thought about scripting something out in those years past, but I felt like just open conversation for this was kind of my most genuine take on this topic. And really my hope with this entire video is someone that is upcoming in speedrunning that I can help their mentality and goal set better, and to just have a stronger mindset for getting out there, whatever goal you happen to have. Maybe you just want to see a certain type of run that you want. Maybe you want to get a run with hitting a certain strat in there and completing it, right? Maybe you want to be, you know, a certain threshold of like top 100, top 50, top 10, etc. for overall for your game, or for Mario Kart leaderboards as an example. Or maybe you're very, very competent at your speed game and you're right within striking distance of world record. I'm talking to you guys because I've been there. I know how frustrating it is. Spinning your wheels, I get it. It's like pulling your hair out. It's like, why can't I complete this? Because I know I can do it, right? And I'm telling you, it's worth it. Get this wired very strong. Once you get your first one, I promise you, all the other ones thereafter, it's a little bit different. The first one is always the hardest to do, and once you get that done, you prove to yourself that you made your goal, you invested that time, you did your research, practice, got some good feedback, you critiqued your own gameplay, right, and everything else. And despite all the fails, all the frustrating moments, all the times that I had to want to throw my hands up and completely quit and say, the heck with it all, right? What's even the point of this? I hope I've gotten through to you in a positive way, because, again, I said it earlier, I feel like if I didn't have that conversation with Cole in 2009, who knows, maybe I would have never gotten past my own self here to do all of this that we're watching today and everything else that I've done in my history. Because again, nothing is more gratifying for making such scary goals that you think you can never do, and then people come along, they push your goal way further out of reach, where it's like, well, I can't possibly do that now, right? I'm talking to you guys, okay? So I know how frustrating it is, but stay in the good fight here, okay? Because speedrunning is amazing, and I wouldn't have been gaming in this way for as long as I have if it wasn't something that I really enjoy. And clearly, if you're watching this, you really enjoy either doing this yourself, or maybe you've been curious about what goes into someone's mind at the highest level of gameplay like this for speedrunning. What really sets someone apart from good to great to elite and world record level, right? What's the X factor of it all? And today, I think we did a pretty good discussion of what I think goes into a very strong mentality for your pursuits and efforts. Fellas, that's all I got today, all right? So hopefully you enjoyed this more longer, open-form talking videos like this. Again, if you got something away positive from this, that's all I hope for with this. But still, more videos on the way. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Peace.